The fishing village.
What was that?
The fishing village was in the state of Massachusetts, and we had, was it not?
No, you go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
I think it was. Yes.
So
what was it?
we just played Amherst, and so we met Unwound in Toronto, and we met their zany sound man, Dave Doman, who went on many months later to produce our next album, The Family Swan. Okay, so we met Unwound for this tour in Toronto, and did we go to Montreal? We went to Montreal. We played
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Casa de Popolo.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And then we went down to Amherst and played the college there. And so we're just getting to know these people, and that's all, you know, big tour for our part of it down to Atlanta, which is a big deal for us to go that far south in the U.S. And then the next show was to be Boston, but we had a day off, and we went to this little fishing town, and we had a bed and breakfast, which is very unusual for us. We were at a one day where we're doing our New England tourist town thing, and I remember it was getting time to leave, and Dave was getting his breakfast at the Fixins table. You know, you got your scone and your butter and whatever condiments were out at the table. And there was a TV, I think, in the corner of that room, as the Americans like to do, and have a TV in every corner of every room. And, you know, beautiful old house and everything, but well, there's a TV looming in the corner. And you'd seen the news, and the tower, one tower had gone down, and you came and told me, and I was all filled with my normal anxiety of check out, must drive, must not forget anything, all these kinds. I still had to have a shower, and I'm like, I guess I was in some kind of denial that this could, you know, was even possibly happening, maybe, as since we're headed right there. And so it seemed to me that, okay, a small plane has accidentally crashed into a building, you know, this is some kind of newsworthy event. Why are you even bothering to tell me this? I'm me, and I'm being me, and you're interrupting that. And anyway, so we were in the getting ready to leave the room late, probably, as is our way. And I still had to have the shower. And so I'm thinking about this in the shower, and then I'd finished my shower, and as you can see, I have this ridiculously long hair that I don't know what to do with. And this is all one sentence, isn't it? So in the shower, because David was going to have a shower next, and there was a hair on the far wall of the shower stall, and I thought that is so rude to leave a hair for a person who's going to have a shower. So I went to take that hair off, and I totally threw my back out. Totally threw my back out. And this would be, I guess, how one processes disasters if one doesn't, you know, scream or take a bottle of whiskey, or however other people tend to process, you know, great disasters. I just went into weird denial and then threw my back out. So we left. I then watched the next tower go down on I think we had a TV, you know, one in each corner.
Actually, I'm not even sure we saw the next tower, because I recall I didn't want to bother you with any more details, and so I think I didn't even, I think maybe I don't know, I think only the first one had gone down, and then we were packing out, we were loading up the car, and then I could hear from the bottom of the B&B a voice scream out, "Oh my God, the second tower's collapsed." And so again, even at that point, I don't think I mentioned it to you, because I didn't want to cause any stress here. And it wasn't until we went to
really?
A clothing second-hand store on the way out of town, we stopped, that we heard it on the radio there again, and I think, you know, we started to take it more seriously, of how it would affect our show, which was that night, wasn't
and
it?
that would
the Middle
be
East.
The most important thing, or the world is ending, or a war is starting.
Well, it's funny how you do think of that, don't you? You think about how it affects you personally, the drive, and what's going to happen with the show, but I don't think the full impact of it was really there. We just thought, okay, well, a couple of buildings fell down. What's the, you know, something terrible happened, but it wasn't going to be the monumental thing we thought it.
That's interesting
into.
to recall the thoughts of the origin of the time. Also, I remember, well, we went looking for a chiropractor because I had to get my back sorted out, being the only driver in the band, and this is was a chronic condition. I remember going into this chiropractor's office who didn't end up, I don't think he was able to see me, but there was a woman there weeping, and he was consoling her, and I was like, oh my God, I guess something awful happened to her. You know, not relating the two, and he said, no, this is a bad time, I can't see you, and I was like, no, okay, I thought it was just some personal thing that had, anyway, it was obviously part of the larger picture, and so next we went towards Boston, not knowing at all what our fate would be, and we met with Unwound, and Thrones were opening, Joe Preston, the Thrones. And so we got to the Middle East in Cambridge, where we played many times before, to do our sound check. And in fact, we did the sound check, and then we were told by the owners, they had come to a decision that they really couldn't put on the show that night, but they'd actually had some threats because the club was named the Middle East, and we were Mecca Normal, and obviously we were the root cause of what was going on, I guess. So they canceled the show, which, if you're in a band, you realize, you understand that if you don't have your audience coming to you, then you also have no place to sleep. And it's just that basic out on the road, that if you can't connect with your people, you're now looking for a motel. But in looking for a motel in the area where the airport, don't forget, was Logan Airport in Boston, where all this took place. So suddenly there's probably thousands of people who are now not going anywhere because all flights are grounded. And weirdly enough, I remember Dave Doman handing us the Red Roof Inn. Oh, they also fed us at the Middle East too, which was good. And we had a weird band meeting with a little bit tension of, people talking about gas prices were going to rise if there was a war on. I think Vern wanted to actually head directly home across the country to Olympia. And we wanted to continue because we had our own agenda. We had a plane out of Toronto. We wanted to do this tour that we weren't in a position just to kind of, it's not really our way, I guess. We didn't, we're not in the same position they were in, whoever wanted to just return. Anyway, so it was decided, I don't think at that point, I don't think we knew yet what we were going to do, but we spent the next couple of days at the Logan Airport, Motel 6. And I was going to say, I remember Dave Doman, the sound man for Unwound and of the band, swearing at motorists, handing us the Red Roof Inn guide out the window of their van at the back of the Middle East after we hadn't done the show, and we loaded all this gear out into the back, and we were all trying to figure out where we were going to go. And so sort of early September, mid-September evening, it's still light out, and we just sort of all disoriented at this dissolve of our plan, at least for that night, and where this was all heading. And I remember how I felt really cared for and touched that Dave Doman handed us their Red Roof Motor Inn guide. And I was like, wow, I feel like I've been given, someone's given me something in this day of doom. I just remember that feeling of, generosity, and here, a Red Roof Inn guide. This will solve everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we ended up at the Logan Airport Motel 6, which was another bizarre episode of how we even got a room there, when it was right at the airport. It was weird. And the woman also, when she found out we were Canadian, somebody else was shouting behind us because there was also this weird Canadian connection to this event, that we'd let the terrorists into the country intentionally. We'd harbored them and canoodled. And
that later turned out to be not true.
Thank you. Voice of reason here, when he gets a chance. So, so it was very weird that, you know, suddenly they were against us and why we shouldn't get this room, that we were next in line, and mysteriously there was room. And then, this has got to be, I almost can't believe this is true. But you know the part of the procedure where they say, what is your license plate number? And you probably had to run out there and get it like normal. Or maybe it was on the key, whatever. Anyway, the license plate started with Allah. Not only were we Canadian and part of this whole disaster, now I have to tell her, and she just split apart. She, you know, she thought I was there like to torture her, really. I have the license plate Allah, A-L-L-A, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and do you remember kind of the sequence of events? I was actually going to ask you, what are your memorable shows from that tour?
Well, I think that the first show we played after that, we did consult with them on the phone with the band, and people agreed to go ahead with one of the New York shows and cancel the other one. I think
the other one got canceled.
I think the other one was right down at near Ground
Yeah.
Zero. So going to the first show, which was at Maxwell's, following this was something that. It was very somber, it was very low-key, it wasn't packed full of people, and the people who were there were very, very quiet, and so it made it memorable just because it was odd in the sense of how shows normally go, or how they had been going with performing with Unwound. And also I remember afterwards when we were driving away, looking back at the sort of steam rising from where the attack took place, as we were driving along, was it the Pulaski Skyway or one of those places, and there was virtually no traffic, if you recall, and it was like we were alone, and I guess we were headed south then. I'm not really sure where we ended up next after that, but I guess we had to go that direction in order to go towards DC, I suppose.
We were heading to Princeton. I don't know if
to New Jersey.
I don't know if we played at Princeton, but for some reason.
Oh, we stayed there. We were
Yeah.
we were driving that night, and it was quite a long drive.
Yeah.
And we got there in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning
Yeah.
or something, into a motel at Princeton.
Now, did you come down to the river, the Hudson River, and look across? After the Maxwell show, it was pouring rain. I know I walked down there. It's a few blocks. No. You didn't do that?
I don't recall that.
Oh.
No, you did that?
Yeah. So we
You never
looked
told
at,
me about it.
What? I remember there were huge puddles all around the car and everything.
Yeah.
I thought you came down there. Anyway, some
Maybe I
people,
stayed with the car because
Maybe.
I recall the pouring
Maybe.
rain, and it was terrible. You know, it
Okay,
was really.
so some people went down, so I have that image emblazoned in my mind of looking back at this steamy, weird, glowing area across the river, which is very bizarre. And the other thing about that show at Maxwell's, I felt like it was, for a lot of people, it would have been the first time out of the house, and they decided to go to that show and to see their friends and to collect there. So it was almost, I was very nervous about what the hell, you know, all these self-referential songs about piffle, basically, you know, when this thing had happened, and I didn't know, you know, how I would feel singing it, or what relevance, why would anybody want to be listening to this right then? And in fact, people did talk a lot through the set, and that seemed fine to me. I felt like we were there for another purpose, really, was to provide a gathering point for a community of people. And I remember, you know, people, of course, were not as loud as the Thrones or Unwound, so we were kind of the opportunity for people to kind of check in and talk about their experience, their understanding of what was going on. But I also remember at that show, really almost, I think for the first time, of being aware of how sound, the depth of sound, the deep sound, the loudness, the pure physicality, the tactile nature of sound against me, entering me, felt very soothing and helpful in a way that I just, you know, I'd never really thought of, just letting that sound be this, you know, waves of helpfulness in some way, and that was a really strong awareness of how sound was. So I was just sort of there basking in this deluge of low-end drones and being pushed, you know, like massaged by the sound.
Yeah, I think the other show was at the very end in Atlanta. That seemed memorable because we survived after many discussions about whether we should immediately head for the border before it closed, or all these doomsday scenarios that we talked about and considered in terms of what was going on at the time, even the sense of would they declare martial law, would they bar visitors, would they deport people. It was all very strange, and to have that final cathartic show where we all got together on stage and played a song together, and it was so loud you could barely hear anything, but there was a sense of chaos to that seemed to be a good metaphor for what we just experienced, really, in terms of the world changing in that moment. And we couldn't have predicted it exactly, but to share this with another group of people, and Dave Doman and Joe Preston, and so it was kind of, you develop a camaraderie as well when you're traveling with people and performing with them, and so I guess that was memorable because it was also just a strange vibe from the audience as well. There were some strange things going on in there.
As there were at a lot of these shows, there were, as well as being a gathering point and people talking a lot, there were also kind of outbursts. Like there seemed to be drunk people, more than we would have at our shows anyway. And it seemed like there was this hostile, weird vibe at the shows that was kind of a little bit scary at times. That it just didn't, you know, people were unglued basically en masse, and then coming out to these events, and everybody's emotional level of intensity or, you know, volatility seemed to be sort of set off by a rock show that, you know, typically has more of a continuity in its vibe, let's say, that there's sort of, you know, people flaring up or running out, or just some funny incidents.
Yeah, because there's a predictability to how a rock show goes, and when you're traveling with people, you develop a routine of, you watch their set and you enjoy it, and it's very predictable, and the audience reaction is often predictable. People like it, or but this is a whole other thing that you're talking about, a whole other vibe that was there.
Yeah, and how music kind of sets kind of a base level of expression. If you're, you know, maybe you don't have the opportunity to express any of your anxiety or fear of what the hell is going on, the destabilization of your life, of your country, of the world, really, and then you come out to a rock show and everything kind of goes a bit into another potential for outbursts or whatever. So that all seemed kind of a memorable part of that tour for us anyway, was being we just sort of kind of relegated ourselves to being an opportunity for people to come out and get together with their group of people, and hoping that you know, solved some of their, you know, personal requirement to be with their people and to talk about what they thought. So in some places, like in New York, I don't think phones were working. In fact, when I talked to Todd at Maxwell's back and forth, you know, from the Motel 6 in Boston, you know, whether the show's going to happen or whatever, and he'd said he couldn't get a line out into New York from Hoboken. He could phone anywhere else, but not into New York, and nobody was phoning him. So it seemed weird that we were communicating with him and he wasn't sure which bands were going to be coming through or canceling their tour, or, you know, we were just sort of, you know, in this, it was a Bowery Ballroom that we lost the one show, which meant we were in the Motel 6 another night watching the TV and the thing going kaboom, you know, 48 more times over those days, where I didn't even have a TV in my life. I remember on that tour, so to have this big huge color TV and, you know, was just really overloaded.
And every station playing the same
and nothing
repetition of the towers going down, and so you become a bit of a zombie at that point, and you realize the audience has probably all been watching the same thing you've been watching in your hotel room, and then they come out to a show, and so that's not usual. That's not normal in terms of how musicians and audience interact, right? It was very strange in that way.
We also, just because of the way we tour in a small vehicle, we maintain our communication by going into little towns and looking for the flagpole that is invariably outside of the library in the small town. So we drive around in some town nobody's ever heard of and look for the library to go in and use the internet and communicate, yes, we are okay, or whatever we're dealing with, our just regular email and promoting shows or whatever. So we were in these small towns in between the big cities, and I remember going into a grocery store just to get some nuts and berries or whatever we tend to survive on. And it was very weird because the people on either side of the the conveyor belt, they were all getting like big huge cakes, like towering cakes, and buckets of muffins and boxes of donuts, and on either we're getting a little pumpkin seeds and bananas and things to live on. And it just seemed like this was weird, that people were in their homes eating this stuff and watching the world explode over and over again. So that was one of my, we were in a foreign land, but it seemed extra foreign, while that was all happening. It was like America at its worst, in a way that it's just, the rug has been pulled out, basically. And the people on all the overpasses, with the yellow flags and banners and just congregating and yelling things out to passing cars of I didn't do it, or no, that's the Simpsons, or whatever, these messages to the populace of their angst and essential need to speak to vehicles at 60 miles an hour. It seemed pretty intense,
Well, it's alienating enough to be touring. The very act is very foreign to what we do in our normal lives, right? You're sort of in a car, you're going from A to B with this particular thing that you want to do, playing music, and so that in itself is alienation from your own normal life, and you have to adopt a whole new life style for those times that you're on tour, and then it's made even weirder by people waving flags at you, and even then, they didn't know exactly what was going on. You have very little information, despite the overwhelming amount of stuff you saw on TV. We didn't really know much in terms of facts, and you wonder what's being whipped up in this whole process, and so that in itself is very, very strange.
Plus, if you recall, normally we just play a CD. We play The Clean over and over again, and or
Neil Young.
Okay, and so we were kind of forced to listen to the radio just to see whether war had broken out or not, because this was the thing. I mean, we'd started, this had all kind of happened. We were in Boston, and things were happening there, and then we're in New York, and you can see visible evidence. Then I thought, oh my God, we're driving to Princeton. What idiots! Like, that could be the next target.
I know, and they said there was a no-fly command in the air, but we heard flights.
Right.
So that was very ominous as well.
And then after Princeton, we survived Princeton, and then we drove and looked back. I just remember I'm doing the driving, looking back or this way, and there's the Pentagon, and there's smoke coming out of it as far as or I can see the hole, or at least I think I can or did. And so I felt like I was a moving target, like wherever Mecca Normal is going, there's missiles pointed at us. In hindsight, it all is static, and yes, this is what happened, and you went through it, and fair enough. But while it's going on, and you don't have the luxury of even knowing.
Well, you develop your own paranoia a bit, in a way. You participate in in the mass paranoia that's kind of going on.
It's kind of unavoidable, especially when you have to listen to the radio.
Yes, exactly.
And they're playing every single. Well, it's funny when they be born in the USA, and not at all noting any irony in that song, or just anything that they could grab onto that had a sort of nationalist perspective, and people phoning in and weeping or railing against whoever they thought was at the helm of this situation. So so from Atlanta we said goodbye, and it felt impossible that they were all driving off towards Texas, and it just felt like we were going to Vancouver and they were going to Texas, and this was it, and we've been through this together, even though we never really talked that much. We didn't share meals together. There was always a sound check going on. They were on stage, we were on stage. So we, in a way, we didn't really get to know people on that tour, except that I think there was this connection, that it's profound when you're with individuals and you're confronted with the emotional magnitude of what might be happening to you, So to leave these people in Atlanta, I felt was almost unbelievable. But I guess I'm a little more.
Well, it's the power of a shared experience, which you can have, in fact, very little conversation between people, and still, an experience can, give you that profoundness in a sense of something that you all went through, and which we all did.
Yeah.
And
or as we like to say, putting the fun back in profundity. So we drove north, they drove west, and that's kind of where it all wrapped up.
Yeah, and it was a strange drive north too, to realize that that was the end of shows with them, and we started to worry about what was the border going to be like. Was there going to be a long lineup? Was there going to be? So you start to think about those practical details of life, and catching a flight home.
I remember, just one last thing, I never meant for this to be so long, but I remember as we turned in the rental car, which was always great, and I think I was coming back alone on the kind of shuttle bus, and I left Dave at the airport, and I swing around, drop off the car, take a shuttle bus back to the airport. That's sort of our MO. And I remember coming up to the bus driver, just as a driver, I'm just waiting for him to stop, or waiting for the right moment to say to him, where's Terminal A, or whatever my question was. So I just said, where's Terminal A? And he goes, what? Jesus Christ! You're sneaking up on me! Jesus Christ! God damn it! It's about ready to, I'm like, holy shit, this guy's, oh, okay, he's he's been in Toronto, enduring this 9/11 thing. His nerves are totally fried, right? God, I wonder how my nerves are right about now, right? Just sort of, anyway.